Emma Louise, thank you so much for being here with me on the Entrepreneurial Success Podcast. I am so excited that we're finally getting to do this after so many conversations. But before we dive in, why don't I hand over to you so you can introduce yourself to the audience and tell us who you are and what you do?
Thanks so much, Henriette. So I'm Emma Louise, and I run a business called Eat Life Wellness here in London. And it's the focus is all on wellness and specifically healing through food and lifestyle. And yeah, like I'm also a lawyer, and I got into this because I was run down and I needed to heal myself. And yeah, sort of a few years later, here I am talking to you, and hopefully about to share some wisdom and just tips that will help people in their daily lives.
Yeah, and I think this is so important because this is one of those kind of topics I've heard so much more about, especially in the last few years. Mind you, especially since COVID as well, a lot more people are talking about gut health and the importance of bringing your health back up to par. So we're going to go into that in a minute. But I'm a little bit intrigued about your story because you just mentioned you are a lawyer, but obviously through your own experience, you've got into this. What is that story like? What made you just go like, yep, this is the thing. This is going to be my business from now on.
So like a bit of a sort of weird journey into sort of wellness and healing through food. As I said, I am a lawyer, like by profession. So like this isn't the, sort of obvious thing that you would expect me to be doing. But essentially, I got really run down after I had my two children in my 30s. And after I had my second child, Ethan, who's now 11, I found myself after like a year and a half of breastfeeding him, after doing the same for my little girl, Jessica, who's now 14, I found myself really, really run down and experiencing like a number of different chronic health issues. Now, I didn't know anything about natural healing at the time. So I was back and forth to the GP, like you do, sort of just trying to get help from mainstream medicine. And what I found was that what they were giving me, which at one point was steroid creams and then kind of back to back antibiotics. And at one course, sort of a fourth course of antibiotics almost consecutively. And what I found was actually those things seemed to be making me worse in the long run. So they would maybe like help me a little bit to begin with, and but actually my health was getting worse. I seemed to be developing other health issues, and that's when I kind of woke up a bit and thought, no, like whatever the answer is, it clearly isn't this. Because I'm coming here to be sort of healed, and actually, my health actually seems to be, deteriorating even more. So that's when I started kind of taking matters into my own hands. I started researching natural healing and other people's accounts of like how they'd healed from similar things that I was experiencing. And I realized, because it wasn't very well known at the time, sort of all those years ago, but I realized that actually, sort of our immune system, we sort of need to be well is largely in our gut. So we're talking 60 to 70% of our immune system is actually, sort of made up of our probiotic colonies. So in terms of strengthening the immune system, I realized, okay, that's where I need to start. I then got into a healing modality called Ayurveda, which is from India, but it's got a lot of things in common with other healing traditions around the world, so other kind of indigenous healing traditions, and it's very much based on kind of treating the body holistically and bringing us all into balance, and it encourages us to look at sort of detoxing, or at least not so much detoxing, but supporting our natural detox pathways on a regular basis as well. So I got into all of this. I started making stuff like fermented vegetables that I realized were, going to really help my immune system. And I could not believe how quickly my health cleared up. So just one example was I had really chronic eczema like all of my life, which just flared up every time I was stressed. And within a couple of weeks of just taking magnesium baths, for example, it was gone. It's never ever come back. So that was just one thing. Sort of also the conditions that I was on the antibiotics for cleared up, and it was quick as well. It wasn't even a long, arduous process, and that was what kind of made me realise okay, this stuff needs to be known, like it became something. I think when you have like an experience that's so sort of transformative, you can't help but become really passionate about like
Yeah.
what's helped you and just want to kind of get it out there and share it. So while I was still on maternity leave with Ethan, I actually set up a farmer's market stall and started selling like the fermented vegetables. I just started making bigger batches of the things that were already healing me and just started making it available for other people. And then, yeah, the business has taken off from there. And I now kind of create 3-day cleanse boxes, which are based around Ayurveda. And I also coach people through a 12-week program as well to just help them really sort of more deeply detox and transform their gut health. So yeah, that's my backstory.
I love it. But I think it's so true what you're saying is once we've experienced something that has completely almost changed our lives in a way, you become so passionate about this and you just want to share it because you know that there are other people out there who's possibly experiencing similar things that you have gone through. And knowing that you've got that knowledge and information now, you can pass it on. And, I've been part of your journey for some parts of it as well. And I've seen the transformation, not just in your business, but also in how you are evolving and what it is that you're doing and the message that you're getting out there to people. And it is so interesting because at the end of the day, we all need to look after ourselves. Nobody else is going to do
Exactly.
it.
Yeah.
And I think with a lot of the food that we're taking in these days, if we are all just a little bit more cautious
Yeah.
and conscious about what it is that we're putting into our guts, I think we'll be able to eliminate so many illnesses and so many issues that we have rather than just going to the doctor. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't go to the doctor, please, of course do,
Absolutely.
but
Mhm.
just like you would be going and doing exercise, taking daily walks, whatever it is, gut health needs to become part of that. So let's talk about Ayurveda. You kind of mentioned it already a little bit there and kind of gave us an idea of what it is, but why did you find Ayurveda was so good for you? And what is Ayurveda basically? What does it encompass?
Yeah, such a great question. So it's the healing modality, so I mentioned it's from India. It's actually the sister science of yoga. And what it aims to do is to basically kind of bring the body back into balance, because the whole kind of ethos with Ayurveda is that if you're experiencing any kind of negative health issue, but also any kind of like negative mental health state, for example, so but pretty much kind of any manifestation of negativity just shows that you're out of balance somewhere. So what Ayurveda does is it looks at us, but also the world around us as energy types, essentially. So there are three main doshas, and if you've ever like experienced anything to do with Ayurveda, you've probably taken a dosha quiz to find out like what your predominant energy type is. So we have the three doshas. There's Vata, which is the dosha of air and ether and space. And then we have Kapha, which is the dosha of earth and water. And then we have Pitta, which is the fiery dosha. And there's also water in Pitta as well. So basically, these are like three qualities. And we're all made up of all of these qualities, but some of us have like bigger proportions of, one dosha than others. Like most people aren't sort of tridoshic, where they've got like a very even mix of the three. And we're supposed to be predominantly one dosha or the other. And when we come back into balance for us, it will probably look like coming back into the doshic kind of constitution that we started with before we kind of got into the world, and then we kind of got out of our integrity and sort of became like a bit discombobulated. So, for example, the Vata dosha, the airy, spacey dosha, are the people who tend to be like big thinkers. So, think someone like Steve Jobs, for example. So, mentally, they're kind of big thinkers, they're creative, but then they're also quite prone to anxiety. And what that dosha type looks like in the body is that they're often they tend to be quite skinny. and quite like they'll have prominent joints, and the issues that they experience, because they're very spacey and airy, tend to be things like bloating and gas, for example. So it all kind of joins up in that way. They also experience like sort of joint pain and that kind of thing, and they're the ones who are more prone to get kind of sort of memory loss as they get older, and osteoarthritis and that kind of thing. So that's Vata. And then the second dosha I mentioned is Kapha, which is the earthy dosha. And it's very like commonsensical. You can kind of almost see where this is going. So an earthy dosha would be someone who's really into homemaking, for example, or someone just really warm and maternal and motherly. So maybe think Oprah, like, you know, that sort of warm, nurturing energy. And in terms of like what they're like physically, they tend to, as you would expect, they tend towards excess weight, for example. So that sort of earthy, heavy quality comes out in terms of excess weight. And from like a mind perspective, a Kapha dosha tends to, because they're so warm and they're loving, and they kind of take on everyone else's stuff, and this happens to most women who become mothers as well, or take on a lot of caring responsibilities. Even if they're not naturally Kapha, they'll tend to kind of exhibit these characteristics of taking on other people's stuff, and then they can become like a little bit resentful and almost like a little bit martyry. So that's kind of like the negative side of Kapha, the Kapha doshas. And then the third dosha would be someone, so like a Pitta, would be someone like Tony Robbins, for example. So think fiery, someone who's really, you know, sort of ambitious, they're very go-getter. They're the ones who have like their whole kind of routine color coordinated, and, you know, they've got their day sort of set up by appointments, and they're really, you know, sort of assertive. And when out of balance, pittas can literally like experience burnout because of all that fire in their system. So their focus is very much on kind of calming down and sort of cooling down as well. And they tend to run hot as well, again, because of that kind of excess heat in the system. So those are the three dosha types, and Ayurveda seeks to kind of determine what you are, what you should be naturally, and then just to kind of bring you into balance.
Oh, that's so interesting. And as you were going through that, I was going in my mind like, which one am I? Which one does sounds like me? But then I know you've got a quiz as well on your website. So for those of you kind of intrigued to kind of find out what your dosha is, obviously I'll make the reference to that in the show notes. But I know that Emma Louise has got an amazing quiz on her website, so you can find out what your dosha is. But in addition to that, you know, why do you find gut health is so important for those three kind of doshas? What do those three kind of doshas help you with in regards to your gut health?
Yeah, so yes, that's a really yeah, that's such a great question, because we hear a lot about gut health, but it's really nice to look at it from an Ayurvedic perspective, because actually before Western science realized that, you know, sort of how significant our gut health is, like Ayurveda has basically been saying this for years. And in Ayurveda we refer to the Agni, which means, sort of loosely means, our digestive fire, and we refer to that as being like the center point of our health. So, you know, so even in the mornings, for example, you know, we like to start our day with something like a ginger tea or some kind of spice to kind of, you know, like ignite that digestive fire, because, you know, that's literally what's kind of burning our food up, you know, and helping it to be absorbed. But yeah, just generally, you know, sort of in terms of gut health, like now we know that 60 to 70% of our immune system is in our gut. What that actually means, because a lot of people know that statistic, but they don't know what it means, like, you know, sort of from a common sense point of
Yeah.
view. So what that does mean is it means our probiotic colonies, which essentially mean good bacteria, is housed largely in our gut. So essentially, when you're ill and it's caused by something like bad bacteria, the good bacteria, which is housed in your gut, will literally kill off the bad bacteria and remove it from the system. So, what we want to do in terms of strengthening our immune system is we want to make sure that our probiotic colonies, so our colonies of good bacteria, are like plentiful, they're varied because there's lots of different types of them, lots of different strains. And we want to make sure they're supported with foods like prebiotics. So prebiotics are what they eat. That means food for good bacteria. So we want to make sure we have lots of good bacteria, and we want to make sure they're looked after, and we want to make sure there's lots of different types as well. So that's why one of the first things I got into was making my own fermented vegetables, because fermented vegetables are a really good natural source of probiotics, much better than anything you would get in a capsule, because food is actually, sort of the natural vehicle for good bacteria.
Yeah.
So that's kind of, that really underpins our health.
And I think this is also then where the gut cleanse or the detoxes come in. Is that right? So if you are doing a detox, is that then getting rid of some of that bad bacteria, or how does a detox work? If you can kind of describe it to us.
Yeah, so this is a really hot topic at the moment, because a lot of people, there's been a lot of controversy on whether you should even describe something as a detox. And, a lot of people are questioning, well, what actually is a detox? Like, isn't your body naturally, sort of detoxing you? Isn't, like, how can you detox? So what's actually happening when I talk about detoxing, for example, is we're not really doing anything. All we're doing, and this is very much the Ayurvedic approach, is we're supporting our natural detox pathways. So yes, like, we have detox organs, already set up, like our liver is obviously, the main one, but also our kidneys, our skin is a detox organ, our lymphatic system is a detox organ. And yes, the idea is that they are removing toxins from our body. Now, from a Western perspective, we talk about toxins and we throw that term around, but there's not actually any definition of toxin, like, from a Western perspective. But in Ayurveda, it's actually quite clear. A toxin is essentially something that your body is in your body, but that your body can't use, that isn't useful to your body. So bad bacteria, would definitely be something toxic that we'd want to get rid of, and that our body is already naturally trying to get rid of, because it's literally set up to keep ourselves healthy. And all we're doing when we're detoxing, at least from my perspective and from an Ayurvedic perspective, is we're supporting the mechanisms that our body already has to remove toxins, and to keep us healthy. So, and that actually is really vital, like, because when you look at our modern life, the kind of things we're eating, the lifestyles that we have, we're often getting in our own way. We're actually impeding what our body is trying to do with the way that we're living. So having a regular seasonal detox, which is what is advised in Ayurveda and what I help with, is amazing for just basically helping your body do what it's already trying to do.
Yeah, and I can highly vouch for that, because I've done some of your seasonal detoxes. And it is really interesting. You'd think that it'd be like this crazy thing and you'll be feeling horrible. Actually, it's not that. It's actually, you feel so amazing by doing the seasonal detox.
Mm-hmm.
And it is something very easy to follow. It's a very easy process. And I'm not going to say more for those of you who are intrigued by it. By all means, I suggest that you have a conversation with Emma Louise. But it is something really interesting, and it is something that I felt was so amazing to try, because it just gave you that extra energy at the end of the day that you never thought you would have. But also it made you feel really good, like you could feel the difference within your gut. And also the sustainability afterwards made a big difference for me. And I've been only doing this for 1 year. What can I say?
Yeah, I love that. That's exactly what it's supposed to do. That's exactly my intention with it. Yeah, and it's not supposed to be like a punishing, sort of juice cleanse where you're deprived of calories and, like, that's not what this is. And it doesn't help. Those kind of things don't help in the long run. They're not doing anything other than giving you like a temporary, sort of little high, but then you just go back to normal afterwards.
Yeah. And I think this is one thing I was afraid of when I did the detox. I was like, oh, I'm going to be constantly hungry. And that was not the case. Actually, I felt, I was eating, but I was eating the right stuff. and it felt fulfilling. And at the
Yeah.
same time, you felt like you were doing a proper detox. But then obviously you've got in your detox boxes so many amazing things to help with the detox process. So I'm not going to share anymore, but it is amazing. So I just vouch for that and just say it really works.
Oh, thanks, Em.
Now let's talk about, obviously with some of the women here listening to this, because the majority of the audience is women, we're all talking about this detox and about Ayurveda and how amazing it is. So I know people are intrigued, they want to know more about it, but is there a couple of life hacks that, not life hacks, is there a couple of health hacks that you can give us just to kind of help us think about this, that this is something we can just start doing ourselves? And then obviously exploring more about what Ayurveda can do for us.
Yeah, absolutely. So the first thing I wanted to share and this is very like central to Ayurveda as well, is to basically to have a daily routine now, and to kind of think in advance of your daily routine. So in Ayurveda, we call this a dinacharya, and it loosely translates to a daily routine. Now, this is kind of all the rage, I think, with lots of, in the entrepreneurial communities, to have a morning routine, to have an evening routine. But it's something that's kind of like been preached in Ayurveda for years. And it's really, really helpful. You don't necessarily have to, sort of do the same things every single day, but just to have some degree of like regularity and ritual in your day, particularly when you're busy, is so useful for keeping your health on track. So I'll just show you, like every Sunday evening, I print out, don't know if you can see that, I print out my dinacharya. And I do this with my clients as well, like on one of our sort of towards the end of working with them. So I can really kind of, sort of get them into good habits. And all it really requires is that you just kind of think ahead, sort of to like what your week's going to look like, and then you sort of document it. You're writing it down, which is like important for that sort of brain connection. And you have some consistent routines like within your day. So for me, for example, like I have a really short, easy morning routine that involves like a little bit of meditation, and I just mean like 5-10 minutes of stillness. I make sure I get a bit of morning sunlight, because that's really important for like setting our circadian rhythms, and then sort of has a knock-on effect on sleep at the end of the day. And that's when I tend to take my herbs as well. So a great herb like for the morning would be ginger, for example, because that really stimulates our digestive fire and kind of gets it going for the day. But if there's anything else I'm taking for my health, for example, at the moment I'm having a herb called Lady Mantle, which is for womb health, then that's when I'll take it in the morning. That's when our body's really receptive to herbs. So, you're just sort of flushing out, and and you're just really starting on a good track with that morning routine. And then in the evening, again, like just having a little wind down routine. And it doesn't have to be loads of stuff. You don't have to start at 3 o'clock and be sort of going until the sun goes down, doing all these, sort of crazy things. But it's simply like a magnesium bath, for example, to wind down and replenish magnesium through the skin. Again, I try and get a bit of moonlight as well, or at least, sort of light at the end of the day, because that again helps with the circadian rhythms. And just again something like movement, so some yoga stretches, for example. Like doing even 10 minutes of stretching is really correlated with deep sleep, that then has the knock-on effect of really kind of helping our brains. So so just incorporating, and it doesn't have to look like my morning and evening routines, but just being kind of proactive and conscious about like having a few rituals that you bring into your day, particularly when you're busy when you're a busy woman, job, maybe kids, pets, all the things. It's those kind of habits just keep you on track, and it just becomes automated, so it becomes easy.
Yeah. And I think it's really good as well, because we all require a little bit of me time. And I think if you can kind of use this as a me time, whether it's like, half an hour in the morning, half an hour in the evening, it doesn't need to be loads of amounts, and it doesn't need to be very strenuous, but just requiring that time to go in the morning. This time is for me, where I'm going to do a couple of things. And I love the fact that you say starting the morning with ginger, because I love ginger tea. So I always steep a bit of ginger root in
Yeah.
water and just use that as a tea. But funny enough, I do it in the evening. So maybe I should swap it to the morning. Very
Yeah.
interesting thought. Thank you for that.
Do you know what? There's no bad time to have ginger. I
I
think.
know. I agree. I
Yeah,
love it. I love
yeah,
it.
absolutely. Morning, evening, both are great. Yeah.
Yeah.
There are
Yeah.
some herbs where you probably wouldn't want them, or some kind of, ingredients like iodine, like, seaweedy type things that you wouldn't
Yeah.
want in the evening, but ginger's not one of them. So that
Oh,
sounds
good.
amazing.
But it is important to have a routine, especially for ourselves, in order to help us with this. So apart from the routine, what other health hack can you provide everybody here?
Yeah, so I wanted to mention a herb that I thought would be useful for people, particularly for busy women. So ashwagandha is a really lovely, popular Ayurvedic herb, and it's a really nice, gentle one. It's very kind of easy to incorporate into your kind of daily routine because you just need, sort of half a teaspoon of ground organic ashwagandha, and you can literally just mix it into like a cup of coffee, for example, like, or a hot chocolate, or just something that you're eating and drinking, and it doesn't alter the taste much. But what it's going to do for you if you take like a small but consistent dose of ashwagandha is it really supports your adrenals. So in this day and age where everything tends to be so stressful, we can't, sort of look at our social media or the news without, sort of things, without kind of getting like that kind of anxiety. This is going to really kind of support your adrenals, just kind of it has a balancing effect on hormones as well. And particularly after, sort of like a busy season, like Christmas, for example, where life's been like, like you've probably got off of your routines, for example, and out of your daily routine. And you might have had a little bit of stress there because we know that Christmas tends to be like a bit of a stressful period of year with family stuff and everything. Like having something like ashwagandha is very, very supportive of your adrenals. It's anti-inflammatory, so it kind of calms inflammation in the body, and and it has an antioxidant effect as well. So it's just a great all-rounder. Particularly for women, particularly for busy women, and it's very kind of easy to incorporate as well.
Oh my gosh, I love that. I'm definitely going to look into it as well. Is that something that you can easily get from over the counter, or where would you suggest people start looking for that?
Yeah, so you can actually get ashwagandha pretty much in any whole food store, with stock it because it's quite a popular one now. And you can get like a big, you could buy it in bulk and just, sort of make sure it's organic. And ideally make sure it's from India as well, because then it will be a nice clean source of ashwagandha. I also use it in one of my products called Eat Life Magic, and I bring in the probiotics you need as well, and some medicinal mushrooms that also kind of aid that kind of balancing, hormone balancing effect as well. So so if you're looking for the other ingredients as well, that's a nice one to check out. But yeah, easy to come. Really easy to come by. Even you could even get it on Amazon, but again, just make sure it's an organic form and ideally from India.
Yeah, very good tip. Thank you so much. And then one more tip. Is there one more life hack that you would like to share with us here today? Because this is so interesting. I feel like I just want to finish the
Yeah.
episode and start my year getting everything sorted.
Yeah, absolutely. So the last tip I would advise people to kind of bring in, and again, this is a nice one after a season of indulgence, for example, where we've had sort of lots of heavy food, and particularly sort of just to do like on a consistent basis anyway, really, is to start incorporating some probiotic food into your lifestyle. Now, there's so many different choices these days. My preference is fermented vegetables, which I've mentioned. That's kind of where I started. And I love fermented vegetables because I personally just love the taste of them. So I'm talking things like kimchi and sauerkraut. So essentially stuff that's like fermented cabbage with lots of different spices. I have some recipes and how-to guides on my website and social media as well, if people want to check that out. So that's a nice one to bring in. But also another lovely one, and particularly if anyone's sort of looking at doing dry January, for example, is kombucha, which is a nice probiotic drink. And again, all these kind of foods and drinks bring in like a nice range of different probiotic cultures, which are going to sort of support your probiotic colonies, bring in sort of lots of different strains, and they also act as a prebiotic as well, so they're real all-rounders. Another example of a probiotic food, like if you like sort of yogurty things, is kefir, which is sold in most supermarkets now. So, you can bring in like any of these, or even better, like all of them, because whatever you bring in, you're bringing in sort of different strains, different probiotic strains. So you're really increasing that like gut diversity, like that microbiome diversity. So yeah, bring probiotic foods into your lifestyle. And if you haven't got time to make them, they're really readily available in the shops. And I have fermented vegetables on my website as well.
I know, and that's so important. I mean, especially after Christmas, we're going into the new year and just thinking about, okay, oh, I need my energy back. I need to do this. And I think, just by using these kind of 3 health hacks that you shared with us here today, is going to make it so much easier just to kind of get into the swing of things and just starting looking at our gut health again. It's not like we're just turning the table upside down and say, you've got to do all of these crazy things in order to start looking after your gut. No, it's just by using those 3 health hacks. And thank you so much for sharing that. Now, also, in addition to just these hacks, is you've got an amazing free weekend gut cleanse guide in order to help us to kind of just take a weekend. And I love this because it only takes a weekend. It is not strenuous, but just something that can help us to do a mini cleanse over a weekend. So tell us a little bit about that. And then obviously I'll share with everybody where they can get it.
Perfect. Yeah, it's so this is something that I've created just for people who are like, oh, where do I start? And this is a really, really nice place to start. It's so simple and easy. It's free to download. And essentially, what I do in that guide is I just, sort of give you some recipes of things to make. I keep it really simple as well, so that it's not going to be much preparation time at all. And it just really kind of enables you to just spend a weekend, or as much as you can of it, just really kind of supporting your natural detox pathways. So the recipes I give you, for example, are very kind of healing and balancing for your body. And the lovely thing is you only need to make like one of them if you want, and then you can actually just mono meal for that weekend, which basically just means sort of pretty much eating the same thing, which has the added advantage of, one, you don't need to do much shopping or cooking, but two, it means that your body can kind of have a rest from having to digest and absorb different ingredients, and you can just eat this kind of one dish, through the weekend. And then you can concentrate on the other practices I give you to really support those detox pathways as well. Stuff like dry brushing, there's some movement and stuff in there. But it really enables you to just, in an easy way, just bring your body back into balance and just get back onto the bandwagon of, after maybe a period of indulgence, for example.
Yeah, and I love it because I've downloaded it as well, and it was so easy to follow, and I loved it. So for those of you listening, if you want to just enjoy yourself and do a detox or a gut cleanse through a weekend, then by all means go and download the guide, and the details for that is in my show notes. Now, in addition to that, I also know with the new year, as it is where we're at the moment, you've got your new detox boxes going out for this season as well. So for those of you also who are feeling like maybe you don't want to go and create recipes yourself, but you do want to go on a proper detox, then by all means get in touch with Emma Louise, and she will obviously guide you as to how to look at those detox boxes and when they're going to be launched for this year. But again, oh my gosh, there's just so much going on in my mind. I'm so excited because I just feel like, I just want to start this new year now and getting ready and doing my detox and just enjoying the year and looking after my gut so much more. So I just wanted to say, Emma Louise, thank you so much for your time, for being here and connecting with us and sharing with us all of these amazing tips. And for those of you who want to go and connect with Emma Louise, obviously her details for her website will also be in my show notes. And obviously you can follow her on Instagram. And also I did mention that you can go and see what your dosha is. So she will obviously, I'll get that link for the quiz and I'll obviously put that in the show notes as well. So if you want to go and look at your dosha, then by all means do that quiz. Emma Louise, I can just not thank you enough for everything that you've just shared. It is so interesting. I always love having good conversations with you because you've got so much information to share. And I think it just makes us feel a little bit, by just tweaking one or two tiny things, well, in this case, three tiny things, it can just makes it so much easier for us to start looking after our own gut health. So thank you so much. I really appreciate you. And I appreciate your time for being here.
Oh, thank you so much, Henriette. It's always a joy to talk to you, and I have absolutely loved this. I really hope people find it useful. And yeah, just like, sort of check out the weekend gut cleanse. If you want some more help, I've got lots of offerings. So yeah, just be really happy for people, even to just get in touch and send me a DM on Instagram if you want to just sort of find out what would be best for you. And thanks so
Amazing.
much for this, yeah, for having me speak to your community, Henriette. It's
Oh,
been
not
such an
at
honor.
all. Oh, no, I love it. I love it because I know you're bringing value to everybody. So thank you. Enjoy the rest of your day and we'll be in touch soon.